The Beauty of Mirror Lake, written by Jennifer Willis, illustrated by Emily Willis. This book is inspired by principles taught in the Bible. Romans chapter 2, verse 1. Therefore thou art inexcusable, O man, whosoever thou art that judgest, for wherein thou judgest another, thou condemnest thyself, for thou that judgest doest the same things. Matthew chapter 7, verses 3 through 5. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, Let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. In the swamps of Gob lived Rediella the frog. She lived with many ugly, warty frogs. Rediella did not like being with so many ugly, warty frogs. She decided to do something to change their ugliness. Rediella decided she would start with Yug Nahum. Yug Nahum was mean and had ugly red warts all over his body. She went over to Yug Nahum's house and told him that he never did anything nice for anyone, and she did not like being around him because he was such a grouch. Rediella thought to herself, surely now that he knows how mean he is, Yug Nahum will change and his red warts will fall off. As Rediella headed to the center of the swamp, she looked up to see Trad Garb up on top of the only big rock in Gob. There he was, tooting his horn again. This time he was telling all of his admirers about his fancy new frog pools he had built by his big house. Rediella was tired of hearing Trad Garb's horn as he announced his greatness to all of the frogs of Gob. Rediella scolded Trad Garb. I've had enough of your horn-blowing pomp. I would be embarrassed if I were you. Can't you see that your tooting and boasting are making purple warts pop up all over your body? And just look at Mr. Tevek's green warts grow as he envies you. Rediella pointed to Mr. Tevek, who was drooling over Trad Garb's snazzy new frog floater. Mr. Tevek's green warts were growing bigger every minute. As Rediella hopped from lily pad to lily pad toward her home, she saw Evet Karta preening herself by the water's edge. Evet Karta loved the attention of all the bullfrogs and was only interested in her own beautiful face. Evet Karta had pink warts, and the bullfrogs also had pink warts. Rediella didn't know what to say, so she put her nose in the air and splashed water on Evet Karta and her admiring bullfrogs. After a good night's rest, Rediella was hungry and went down to the bayou to find some water striders and mosquitoes. There she found Bold Taff sitting by an old rotten log eating big piles of the most delicious bugs. He looked happy enough, but he was eating way too much. Rediella really tried to get Bold Taff to stop eating so much, so his orange warts would go away, but Bold Taff just kept stuffing bugs in his big fat mouth. One by one, Rediella went to each frog in Gob and told them why they had warts all over their body. Syphil's gold warts were caused by his selfishness. Gorfyzal's blue warts were there because he was lazy. The ugliness around Rediella was getting worse and worse, and so Rediella worked longer and harder to get the ugly frogs to see what was causing their warts. But the more she focused on their warts, the bigger their warts became. Then, one day, Rediella heard about the most pure and beautiful lake at the top of a distant mountain. The ugliness around her was getting so bad that she decided to take the long journey up the mountain and see the lake for herself. As she came into the clearing at the top of the mountain, Rediella found the lake. It was the most beautiful lake she had ever seen. White light sparkled across its crystal clear surface. The air was filled with delightful music, and the trees around the lake danced with joy in the wind. Animals splashed joyfully in the cool water as they played with one another. Rediella watched in wonder, enjoying the peaceful harmony of all that surrounded the lake. She was amazed at how soft and smooth the animals' skin looked. There was no ugliness in them. Rediella was getting thirsty, so she went closer so she could also drink from this beautiful lake. As Rediella leaned forward to get a drink, to her horror, she saw an ugly warty frog in the lake's reflection. She turned around to see which of the frogs from Gob had followed her to the lake to ruin her chance to see real beauty. But when she turned around, she didn't see any frogs from Gob. She turned back to the water. The warty frog staring back at her looked confused. As Rediella moved, the warty frog moved with her. Rediella reached up to feel her nose, and the warty frog did the same. She felt something on the end of her nose. It felt big and lumpy. To her surprise, she could see that she was the ugly warty frog. As she looked closer, she saw a big blue wart and a green wart on her forehead. Her cheek had a pink wart, an orange wart, and a gold wart. When Rediella stood up, she could see that her body was covered with big, ugly warts of all colors. For the first time in her life, Rediella saw what she really looked like. It was a horrifying experience. She didn't want anyone to see her. She did not think her warts belonged in such a beautiful place. She hid behind a plant and began to cry out for help. Just then a graceful angel emerged from the lake. "Child, why are you crying?" Rediella sobbed. "I have big ugly warts all over my body, and I don't know how to get rid of them. I didn't even know it was possible to have so many warts." The angel spoke. "Your eyes have been opened, and now you can see yourself clearly." "But how can I get rid of these warts?" Rediella wailed. "The answers are in the lake," the angel gently said. "The warts have been growing for years and will not come off easily. Listen to the quiet answers of the lake and follow its instructions. In time, the warts will come off and be replaced with beautiful shimmering velvet." Rediella started to feel some hope and came out of her hiding place. For a long time she sat deep in thought close to the water's edge. She realized that even though she had such ugly warts, she did not feel judged by the lake. She looked at a big red wart on her arm, and it reminded her of Yugnaam's warts. The thought came to her, "Do something kind for Yugnaam." Rediella knew the lake had spoken to her and decided she would follow its instructions. Rediella went to see Yugnaam. There were big cracks in the walls of his house. Rediella had gathered some rare straight sticks at her house that she was going to use to build a porch. She asked Yugnaam if he wanted her sticks to fix his house. Yugnaam couldn't believe his ears. Was Rediella really going to share her new sticks with him? He was overjoyed and followed Rediella to her home. They gathered up the sticks and carried them back to Yugnaam's house. For the next several weeks they worked side by side as they fixed up Yugnaam's run-down house. When the house was finished, they repaired Yugnaam's dock. Rediella and Yugnaam sat on the new front porch and looked at all they had accomplished together. Yugnaam started to tell Rediella about his wife that lay sick in the back bedroom. Yugnaam was afraid she might die. He was so happy to have the house fixed up. He had been so busy taking care of his wife that he had not taken time to work on his house. The next day Rediella brought Yugnaam and his wife a big basket of the most delicious dragonflies found on the bayou. As Rediella talked with Yugnaam and his wife, she thought Yugnaam looked a little different, but she didn't know why. They chatted and laughed as they shared her big red dragonflies. The color of the dragonflies reminded her. That was it. Yugnaam didn't have any more red warts. They were all gone. He was beautiful and his skin shimmered in the sunlight. Had Yugnaam changed that much, or was it Rediella who had changed? Rediella couldn't be quite sure. What she did know was that she loved young Nahum, and he was a beautiful frog. Rediella returned to visit the lake the next day with her good news about young Nahum's red warts. As she looked into the water, to her surprise she saw that she also had beautiful shimmering spots where her red warts had been. It was a miracle. She asked the lake what happened to the warts. She heard the voice of the lake speak words that she was beginning to understand. The meanness she had seen in young Nahum had really been a reflection of her own mean spirit. She had tried to change young Nahum so she wouldn't be reminded of her own ugliness. But as Rediella's meanness changed to kindness, red warts didn't bother her anymore. She didn't even see them. She only saw what was underneath. She was learning that the most powerful way to change the swamp was to change herself. Rediella thanked the lake for sharing its wisdom. Rediella saw the other warts on her body. As she walked away, she looked forward to the day when they would be replaced with shimmering velvet. She knew if she listened to and obeyed the lake's instructions, the lake would teach her everything she needed to know. One day she would be as beautiful as the lake and all of the animals around it.